Hey, it's Dan McDonald here, and today I wanted to make a video on unity consciousness. This is really important to me, and I've been thinking about it quite a bit over the past several months, just in regards to like presidential election stuff, as well as basically every area of human life. And in fact, human life itself, interestingly enough, obviously is kind of a walking dichotomy, and there's just their duality, you know, in the perception in a human brain. There has to be that duality, that perception, in order for there to be any kind of contrast, for you to even have any kind of spatial awareness at all, if you know what I mean. So what side of the fence do you want to be on in any given human subject? We've got diet, we've got religion, we've got politics, we've got economics and environment. But I wanted to kind of go above and beyond all that, basically straight into the heart of like humanity, because I really love myself, nature, and human beings, even the ones that don't care for me particularly. And you know, just animals and life. Basically, I really care about life, and that was the underlying motivation for this video, was to sort of maybe bring awareness to the fact that we're all here on Earth, and it's all of our home, temporarily, albeit in a spiritual sense, yes, and still yet pretty amazing that this little rock in space has been sort of spinning around the sun at the perfect distance and speed in order for microorganisms to form billions of years ago and then evolve up into a human being. It's kind of amazing, and I think it's cool if we took a little bit of time to think about that, and so basically bring to attention that thought, or that saying, agree to disagree. I think that we would all be wise to do that. We can agree to disagree on smaller things, but it would be really cool if we agreed to sort of stick together as far as, you know, realizing that this is a beautiful planet. We're very blessed to be here. Our children are a blessing, our life is a blessing, our health is a blessing, the gifts that we give is a blessing. Being generous and abundant and having more of a service-minded kind of an attitude is really good. It's good for your heart, it's good for your consciousness to continue to work in that direction where you feel that you yourself are fulfilled and you have an overflow of abundance. So, and if you don't have that overflow of abundance, I want to encourage you to step into a more abundant, prosperous state of mind, which is all that it is. And I learned that through my own personal experience, as I went from being what I considered to be quite poor, spent quite a bit of my time, you know, wandering around the streets of Seattle with a poverty type mentality. And I wouldn't say I've totally left that behind completely, because there's always those subconscious levels, but what I've done consciously is cultivated an attitude of gratitude and gratefulness and abundance. And also, one of the greatest tricks that I've used in order to really bless my own life is to continue to be generous with others, instead of thinking, oh, I can't really afford to give away part of my sandwich, or I can't afford to open up and give away a couple of these coconuts, or I shouldn't give this lipstick to my sister because it costs $12 even though she really loves it. That kind of thing. Small stuff that was just mentioned there, but huge dividends in that flowing when you say to the universe, I have. When you are giving, you're just telling the universe, I have. And the universe says, well, you have. And so it just gives you more. It's this divine flow. And that's been one of the greatest blessings in my life, is to learn generosity. It's just so much fun for me to give, to make food. Like, for example, the other night when I had all my neighbors, I invited all my neighbors over to my new little spot. and I just, I spent like maybe $50 at the farmer's market to make dinner for 10 or 12 people, and I didn't think anything of it. It was just to be a blessing like that. Well, what does that mean? Well, all my neighbors got a free meal that they didn't have to pay for, and we all got to connect. So it's that kind of thing to where, just that generosity, I didn't even think about it, but I want to share that with you because I want to encourage everyone to practice that generosity. And so that goes back to my, original thought, which was just unity together so that we can, keep our abundance, keep our earth, because I've seen a lot of a desire for there in society to be separation and division. I guess this is what brings me to my thought, really, which inspired me, which is like a lot of the stuff that's going on with the racism. I don't have all the answers, whatever, you know what I mean? But I'm saying it seems like they're using that as well as other things, they being sort of, the powers that have used commercials and subliminal messaging and advertisements that's been going on for a long time, and then other even potentially more sinister type mind control stuff, just really wanting to make things be that they're comfortable with, but we're trying to bust through. We're trying to have a revelation because we're living in a society where a vast majority of people have health problems. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but obviously in society, it's set up in a way to where it's like, you're paying all this money for insurance to get some pills that don't really work to cure diseases that were could have been, mitigated and snipped in the bud from the very beginning with better education, better food. Why don't we have better food? That's basically, I'm sorry it takes me so long to get warmed up, but why don't we have better food? It doesn't make any sense to me. So first of all, we have to have a unity consciousness and start thinking to ourselves, hey, that's one thing. Like, if you want to have grass-fed animals and things like that, because, I was always sort of going along in my own little, like, vegan thing and promoting that. But, for example, all my friends eat meat here and there. So, I would have to judge everyone I know and try to soapbox and tell everyone how to live and eat. But for example, like if you want to have your grass-fed meat and I want to have my fresh, mineral-rich, organic plant foods, we need to come together and have an agreement about that. We need to agree like, yo, we don't want chemicals on our food. So we got to figure out why there's so many chemicals being dumped on our food and finding their ways into our body. This isn't a video where I go into all the sinister aspects of what's going on in our society, but just pointing out some more of the obvious stuff in a more politically correct way, which is, there's a lot of chemicals and there's a lot of health issues, and those chemicals can get trapped intercellularly, and then that's why I've always been like detox, 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 because some people respond to the chemicals more harshly than others depending upon their immune system and their microbiology in their gut. So, but what we're seeing is a progressive increase in gut dysbiosis and neurological damage in our children, in our grandmas, and in everyone to a degree or extent. We've got all of our social media, so you can make it look like you're not going nuts, but really there's a lot of things going on to where I kind of say to my people, wow, am I going crazy or what? And they're like, no, Dan, you're not going crazy. The world is getting crazy. Because I'm trying to live barefoot with no shirt and eat as much real food. I pretty much only eat real food. I'm one of the few people, at least according to my friend that I was hanging out with the other day. She's here on the island too, going around and hanging out with people. And she's like, you're the only one that eats this way. Real food every single time. Meaning to me, like raw and as simple as possible. So that was just my little rant for the day. As far as like agreeing to disagree on some of the smaller, less important things, like what are your macronutrient ratios, you stupid idiot? That's not really appropriate, you know what I mean? You what? You have 12% fat? That's ridiculous. You know, that kind of thing, to where it's like, whoa, 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 you know. We all should desire to have foods without chemicals. So that became sort of this video's sort of underlying, like, within Unity Consciousness. That's one example of, if you're going to eat whatever you're going to eat, you probably don't want a bunch of chemicals on that. That's the Unity Consciousness that I'm talking about. That we need to just have this uprising and an expansion of awareness of where these chemicals are coming from, why they're coming from. So we need to work together in our own minds and agree to disagree on the smaller things, so that we can agree on those really, really important things, like the barrage of chemicals, which I see as a health practitioner working with people for the last several years, that and having a chance to do some deeper research into, like, cancer, autism, Alzheimer's disease, as well as all the different neurological diseases, nervous system damage, and autoimmune disorders. I'm seeing a real correlation between the levels of the chemicals that are being introduced to the expanding levels of sickness. We also want, we all want to have that Unity Consciousness of wellness, right? Because however much money you got, it don't mean diddly squat if you can't get out of bed and move around and breathe and be happy. So let's work together. Let's take the example that was shared in this video today and, you know, connect our minds to another level of that unity, and then have, you know, this is what, as a mature, responsible, consider myself sophisticated person, that we should be having, you know, discussions, rational discussions, but it's all so emotionalized so many times. The human beings invest so much in their present level of consciousness, understanding, and experience, that what happens is they forget to see that, oh, you know, there's this whole new science of microbiology with newer technology, that we're able to see all these different potentials that we couldn't before, to where we start seeing some of the old models that we were living off of are no longer even relevant, like calorie counting and things like that, where we're all like, oh, the calories in, calories out. It's that simple, right? Well, it's not, because you start seeing that with this new science of microbiology and the microbiome and gut dysbiosis, that one person digests, absorbs, and utilizes every little ounce of food that they eat, and then there's little Mr. Skinny over here or whatever, and he's just stuffing food into his face, and he's not gaining no weight at all. And so what that example just makes me want to, you know, point out that, you know, we need to also be aware as human beings, and this is human consciousness itself, that there is more out there in front of us, and where we are right now will one day be ignorance. Isn't that a wise place to be? So you end up not being able to be so famous on YouTube for having all your divisive, like, you're on my team or you're not. It's like a George Bush kind of thing. You're either with us or you're a terrorist. It's like, well, I'm somewhere in the middle, bro. You know what I mean? That's a funny little example. It's not a black and white world, and to sit in the middle where the light is, that's what I'm recommending to you, to us, for us, by us, FUBU, for all of us. Because I know that I have this little tiny platform here, and I hope that I made a difference in your life in some way or another, and that you can, because I really want to join you, and I want you to join me in that unity consciousness, so that this world can be a better place, and we can just all be happier, and we can feel safe, that the food we have, and if we do get sick, that we've got proper care, you know. And so let's just continue to work together and expand our minds. Let's look into the future and create a vision of an enlightened society where we serve one another with our gifts, where we feel so good, and we have so much life energy to give to others, that giving is what becomes fun. Serving begins to be, in that moment, the gift of life itself. Not with any, what am I going to get out of this? Or am I, racking up points to get a better seat on the train to heaven? But just heaven becomes right now on earth when we serve. And I've seen it in my own experience. When we serve and give and be generous and work together to communicate any kind of differences, or we're working through that static in our relationships, our business relationships, and with our own self. We're working through that static honestly, and we're having these little internal debates of, okay, I can't quite be exactly where I want to be today, so I'm just going to accept where I am and just keep holding that vision for your better life, the best life that you can live, that you are just overflowing with energy and life and love. And I know for many of you, you don't even have hope for that, but there's always hope, because you can find that inner peace and you can find that center point. And I made a little post on Facebook yesterday, and I said, to just let go of the world and embrace tightly the life within you. And when you do that, you'll see that there's so much heart and so much light and so much infinite potential when you go inward and you look at what you really are at the deepest core of your being, and you can step into that place and you realize that everyone else is coming from there as well. Their skin color might be different, or their goals, or their dreams, or their diet, but at the end of the day, that's really the enlightened perspective, is that source, that light, that life, that God, that is the source of all of us. And we are one, So thank you. Peace be with you. Bless your family.